This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you love horror collectibles, make sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors. Stick around for more information at the end of the video, or go to the website in the link below. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and yes, we have come to the tail end of our Fantastic Fest coverage. What a time, what a privilege this was. We were definitely excited. I'm not going to go through the entire diatribe of how this all worked for us as I tend to do. I just got to say it was something we really just stuck our necks out for. We said, hey, is this even a possibility for us at our level, where we're at with the channel and everything, and just kind of where we stand in this whole, film game in general. And it's amazing, the people that we met and the people that were able to make this happen. We thank you. You know who you are. I'm still just kind of in shock that we even got to attend virtually and just get to see these films like that. That was really the true privilege.
Absolutely. And when we had first started this, it's no secret, it was just going to be, a podcast and then some videos whenever time allowed. And, the ball got rolling and it got pretty wild pretty fast. And just like anything, we kind of always put feelers out there to be like, well, probably not this year, but might as well test the waters and see. And that's really how Fantastic Fest came along, was, we didn't really anticipate the coverage, obviously, since we're running so close with Splatterthon and Fantastic Fest coverage. It was just kind of something that really did fall into our lap, and it's one of those things where we waited for that confirmation before we even said anything, and that came, a little bit later. So, it's kind of really run and gun, especially with being able to see some of these films and getting them some films a little bit later, which was, one of those things where habitually checking the email probably 100 times a day just to see if we got anything.
Constantly.
We had to patrol. But being able to, getting that access is just an absolute privilege, and being able to see these films that we're going to talk about here are an even bigger privilege, just because what quality. I mean, it was wild. I was amazed at some of these films.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that, we had heard through the grapevine that we would get a chance to see, stuff that we were familiar with, and then stuff that was really just a surprise. And, the fact that we got to do it and get it out there is great. One of the things that I will tie into this before we hop into what we're doing in this video is, Fall of the House of Usher was set up through Fantastic Fest. Guaranteed, if you've seen that review, you already know the story. It kind of was wavering back and forth through just kind of lack of communication on our end, lack of an experience of just knowing exactly how to go about it. But it worked out in the best way possible. We got that. So we're not including that on this list, because if we did, it probably would take the top spot for both of us. I mean, it was that good. Check out our full review, though. But I do want to credit the fact that if we didn't attend this festival, that opportunity would not have fallen into our lap. So thank you for that. But what we're doing here is just kind of running through all the films that we saw and kind of giving you guys a personal ranking, where Luke and I both sit on, each other's sides with this. Because, we both saw all these films except for two, which we're going to start with. They don't qualify in our ranking necessarily, but because we didn't get a time to do separate reviews for them, we are going to talk about them. But everything else we've seen, I think the only thing that differs from list to list is one film shows up on my list that doesn't show up on yours. But other than that, we're going to just go through, talk about them, give our thoughts and opinions, and let you know basically what was the best to worst of the festival. And I'm not here to disparage filmmakers and people who are taking part in the festival. If we didn't like your film, I'm sorry. It's just kind of how these things roll. All film is subjective. I know for the ones that are towards the bottom, there were some people who really loved these, and you can find their reviews there. So I totally recommend everything that came out at this festival. Check it out. It's a strong lineup, but yeah, that's really everything we got. So why don't we hop right into it? Kicking things off, we're going to start with the one that I saw that Luke did not get a chance to see, which was called The Wait. which was something we did get a screener for early on in the festival, but at the same time, we kind of inadvertently got another screener for Spooktacular, which we'll talk about a little later. So one of those took precedent, and obviously, if you've seen the channel, you know that was Spooktacular. But we did try to circle back a couple of times and get The Wait done as a singular standout review, but things just with this schedule, it's something we'll have to adjust ourselves to. And now that we know what to expect, we'll get there. But I sat down and checked this film out, and I do have to say, I'm kind of surprised that this didn't make my list. And I think the only reason I didn't even qualify it is because you didn't get the chance to see it. And that was really the only qualifier here, because this is pretty good. This is definitely a very intense, very horror drama. And I like the concept here of having a man who is basically responsible for all of these like hunting, I guess you call them blinds, on this large piece of property in this estate, who is basically pushed to do something that he does not want to do in order to make some money. And he's pushed in a lot of different angles here, from people of power, people of wealth, and even people in his personal life. And you kind of really see the writing on the wall as far as just like, he doesn't want to do this and he knows there's a good reason why not to. But where this film goes and how it dives into all of this craziness, you don't see it coming. And honestly, it was quite a breeze to sit through. It was one of those ones where I watched it and I was genuinely surprised how quick it went by. So I'm going to say that, Luke, you should definitely check this out, but I think The Wait is worth a watch. This doesn't have any kind of like a hard release date right now, but to me, this was definitely one that I wish, if we had some more time, I would have liked to have kind of included into a solo review, because I think it does deserve it. But just with, again, how things worked out, that didn't happen. But if you want me to put anything on this, I would call this a kind of a Western folk horror tale. And it's a good blend. It's nice. I like it a lot. Very strong performances, very interesting gore, very interesting concept in general, and definitely worth the watch.
Yeah, that definitely does sound interesting. I'm definitely gonna check that one out. That little blurb, the synopsis that they do give us, sounded pretty interesting. It was just one of those things where limited time, things to cover, but it's gonna be on my list. I'd love to circle back and get that one watched.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ones that I did get to check out that you did not was Jackdaw. And yeah, the only reason that this is not on my ranked list is just because you haven't seen it. If you had seen it, this would probably fall in the middle somewhere, because this is an entertaining watch. It's different. We're horror centric, not all the time, mostly, but this one is,
we make exceptions.
Yeah. This one is a genre. It's more of an action thriller, I would say. Has to do with Oliver Jackson Cohen as our main character here as Jackdaw, and he is you're just dropped into this seedy world of a lot of distasteful characters, and he is this ex-motocross champion that basically, it does give me, in a sense, some Drive vibes. He's this, kind of doing these jobs. And one in particular that kind of really spirals out of control, which is really the first one that we were the audience is with him on, and he does have a brother as well, and that comes into play. It's really a family tale at the end of the day here, which is a little bit surprising because we're kind of on this nonstop thrill ride for the majority of the film, and then it does take a little bit slower turn toward the end of it. I did have a chance to interview the director, Jamie Childs, and very, very nice guy, very interesting. You can tell he's a true creative. I had a chance to take a look at the production notes here, and I mentioned in the interview, one of the things is he kind of just got inspired by this by looking out his window and seeing this kind of landscape of oil refineries and different things, and kind of had come up with this chase scene and kind of really just started building from that. So he kind of took a bunch of things that really interest him and kind of put it into a one big film, which, you really get that vibe. You really get a different flavor for this one. There's a guy that's, mining cryptocurrency, and you get these nightclubs and all these different things of this, of Jackdaw kind of going from one instance to another, and really just being stuck in this dark world here. And Oliver Jackson Cohen really does bring this kind of um, softness to the character. He's hardened when he has to be, but kind of silent softness, I guess you would say. Really interesting film. I would recommend it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's about an hour 30, a little bit over that, but it's a really fast watch. I think this is slated maybe to come out. I don't think there's a definitive list or a definitive release date. I think it maybe is the first quarter of next year at some point, but definitely make some time and check that one out.
Yeah, and for both of these films, it's kind of again the trade-off we made with each other. It's like, we're coming down to the wire. You got time for this one, I got time for this one. We'll do the coin flip, who gets what, and it just worked out that way. And definitely we're both going to circle back and check these out. So maybe they'll warrant solo reviews as we get closer to the film's release date. We could definitely try to work something like that in, but because they were on our festival slate, we had to talk about them. So definitely 2 recommends from us there, but unfortunately they did not make our definitive list. Now, before we hop into our list proper, there is one film I do want to talk about and get Luke's opinion on. I did a solo review for the film Fishmonger, which is a short film. And this was something that, again, I said it in the review. I didn't think I was going to cover any short films, and neither did Luke. But, this is one that the director reached out to us because they were doing their own PR. They're getting everything set up for it. And it was genuinely the fact that they shot us an email and I saw the trailer and I actually looked into what it was. Because when I saw the concept and I read the tagline and I watched the trailer, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this seems like something I could watch. And then you watch it, it's 25 minutes. Absolutely blew my fucking mind. I'm not including it on my list proper because it is something that, it's not a full film. And, it's something that if we didn't, we wouldn't be even as far as our list goes. So I'm just going to say Fishmonger would probably be up there for me. Definitely top 5 of the festival. For me at least. But Luke, I haven't heard your opinions hardly at all on this. I need to know, how do you feel about Fishmonger?
Oh, I enjoyed it. Us being fans of The Lighthouse, and there are films out there that you can say, if you watch it a little too close to the actual property to say inspired by, but then I think there's a true art form to say short film's inspired by something, but it's not a true replica. And I think Fishmonger fits that bill of, being inspired by The Lighthouse, having those tones of it, but also having your own unique take on it, which absolutely there is here. There's, just looking at the effects, looking at some of the comedy in here, some of the horror in here, some of the musical numbers in here, it is a wild ride. I love when filmmakers and creatives are able to kind of lean into more so unique storytelling and not just kind of A to B to C. Let's explore everything. And I think Fishmonger absolutely does that. I think watching this is the epitome of not knowing where they're going to go next, because it is just one ride after the next. You never really know where they're going to set up. I think performances are just so well done here. And again, you never know when you have one creative voice behind it with no budget and you're using the resources that you have. It's really hit or miss. And I think this one was a knockout of the park. I really enjoyed it. It's again, one of those things where as we're talking about this stuff now and, the screening room has now closed, it's like you're being reminded of all the good stuff that you've seen that you want to go back and watch. And Fishmonger's easily one of those.
Absolutely. And I like to say, I think that we can go back and watch this one because we got sent the private link. So we might be able to. So I would like to check it out again because, again, it's a breeze. It's 25 minutes. I did get some follow-up from the director, Neil, on when this thing is going to be available. They do want to hit a few more festivals. It will eventually pop up on Vimeo, but they're going to keep running the festival circuit at least for the next year here. And I am happy to report that, yes, the entire, plan here is to go forward and make this a feature film and hopefully be able to bring some of the cast members back. And I think that's the smart move. I think that it would be a lot of fun. Again, I said it in my review. I think that this would fall into an A24's wheelhouse here.
Oh, yeah.
Especially kind of riffing on The the lighthouse slightly. It's like not a direct riff, but it's one of those things where you can tell that they're inspired by it. But this definitely leans even harder into the comedy element there. But again, wonderful practical effects, just zany concept. It's out there, dude. I absolutely adored this, and I can't wait for more people to see it.
As we're spitballing here, and just a thought, so maybe everyone can look for this down the road. If once that hits Vimeo, if we can get him on here and do like a little watch along, would be
Oh,
just
absolutely. I'd
great.
love it. If we could get Neil, I'm sure we could. He's a super nice guy. I would love to have him on here just to even pick his brain about how
Yep.
they accomplish some of this stuff. Because as a short film, it's just like it's so high quality.
Yeah,
Like
I
you
would
just,
just
it's so
it,
good.
again, it's one of those things where I would wait just so we can have the visual up, so that everyone can kind of see as we dissect everything, because it's definitely worth it.
100%. We were talking off air with our buddy Evan for a future Splatterthon video. Hint, hint. And we were talking about it, and because he was just asking about the festival, and he looked at our review and he saw the thumbnail. He's like, "I'm in. I don't care what it is. I'm in. Let's go." So yeah, it's one of those. Be prepared and just know what you're getting into when this does finally drop. But it is so worth the watch. All right, and to talk about that list, let's get into it, Luke. So we are starting off again from the bottom all the way up to the top here. And unfortunately, what made the bottom of our list was something we actually were looking forward to. Just based off of the synopsis and what we saw, it looked like it could be an interesting thriller, but I think it pretty much just floundered for us. And that's why I didn't get a standalone review, but that is Bark.
Yeah, that one fell a little flat for us. I honestly did have some high hopes for it, and even starting the film, I had some high hopes for it, but I just don't think they were able to keep up that interesting pace enough to really kind of keep your attention. I know this was one that, I'm not gonna lie, was a little harder to get through than most of the films on this list, really. And I think maybe there was a twist in here that was supposed to be a little more meaningful than it was, and for me, it just didn't really hit.
Yeah, I think that this one really fell apart, honestly, about 20 minutes into it for me, where things are just kind of like, okay, is this stuff in his head? They do have a really cool, like, kind of twist in concept where it's like, oh man, like, that's kind of neat if that's where they're going to go with it. And then they don't follow up with it at all. And then you're led to believe, okay, so this isn't in his head at all, or it is. And then the third act comes in and that final punch, and they're trying to tell you what the whole thing is about. And I just was shaking my head the entire time, just like, oh my God, like, this is really what you're doing? Like, I think that there's a time and a place for that movie, and we've seen it. We've seen that, and it's a bombastic shoot 'em up action film, and it's great, and it spawned a great series. But for this, I don't know. This just didn't work for me. I had a hard time sitting through it like you, and I think by the end of it, we just sat there and said to ourselves, like, yeah, this one we got other films we got to watch and prioritize. This one's just going to make it on the roundup list, and it made it to the bottom, unfortunately. So again, no hate on the filmmakers here. It's hard to make a film. It's hard to get things going. The fact they got it in the festival is great, but just didn't work for us.
Yeah, and the idea I think was interesting enough. I think you just have to keep the audience engaged for when you come up with a concept like that. You really do have to keep them engaged with dialogue and different happenings as they're going on. But I think it just kind of flatlined a little bit for us.
So going on to our next one there. So second from the bottom for both of us is a different film. Yours is You Are Not Me, and mine is The Uncle. But if we were to jump up next to the next spot, it would be The Uncle's, or it would be You Are Not Me. So we are going to talk about that one next. And this is one we do have a solo review up for. I think that we both found it to be interesting. It's one of the few holiday horrors on this list. We had a lot of Christmas films here, and this was definitely one of the more unique ones. One of the ones that kind of relies more on that kind of culty aspect to it. And I think for the most part, it's still like reflecting on it. It's still a fun watch. It's still a little slow for my liking, but I think that the payoff to this really does a lot for the film, and really leaves you sitting there guessing and wanting to kind of go back and look at all the symbolism, because this is definitely a film like on reflection. There are just hints and clues hidden throughout this entire thing, and it does warrant a couple of watches. I just don't know if the pacing there for me is going to get me to sit down and watch this anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's the kind of cross to bear. I think when we do this is that I really would have loved to sit down and watch all these films a second time through, just to be able to kind of really sit with them and pick up some extra things. But we're pretty much one and done with a lot of these right now, just nature of the beast. But You Are Not Me is one that I definitely do want to go back and check out. I think more so why this appears lower on my list is just because uh the ending, I enjoyed the ending a lot. I wish that they kind of developed that a little bit more and we kind of sat with it a little longer, because it's such an interesting concept and it was something that I had been waiting for while I was watching this. I was hoping they were going to go that route, but then it kind of, everything happens and then we kind of end it. Now, I really would have loved to have seen this kind of conceptually. Let's sit with this. Let's bring it out. Let's draw it out and see where we're going to go with it and kind of just live in that space a little bit longer. But quality film. It's just, like Dylan said, pacing's a little slow, and I really wish they would have maybe kicked it into gear a little sooner than they did. But I was intrigued by the film. I think it's a very well put together film. It's just one of those ones where I wish they would have done a little bit more for me.
Agreed. Appearing next on your list there, Luke, is Pet Sematary Bloodlines. That one actually goes a little higher up on the list for me, so we're going to have to bump to your next one there, which is The Uncle, which was my second to the bottom, which was where you had You Are Not Me. So why don't we sit back and discuss the lovely tale that is The Uncle? And yeah, it's no secret, this movie made me wildly uncomfortable. We have a solo review up for it, which I think is, on reflection, pretty funny because I was clearly a bit shaken by this movie. And I think for all the right reasons. It's not really ending up this low on my list because it's a bad film under any circumstance. It's just one that, when I kind of put everything into the pot of rewatch value and stuff, this is one that you're going to have to twist my arm a bit to get me to sit down and watch because it does a great job. It really does succeed at what it's trying to do. It just makes me rather upset. And yeah, that's really where I sit with it on this one.
Yeah, and I totally understand why, Hig makes you a little upset. I'm definitely, we see so many films and we're so desensitized to it for the most part. So it's really, an intriguing circumstance to when one of us actually gets a little more disturbed by a film. So, this one, I think it did its job, to be honest. It's one that, yeah, I definitely was uncomfortable while I was watching it, but I was able to kind of almost stand away from it and be like, okay, so it is working. They're really trying to set up these uncomfortable situations. And, for me, there are films that really kind of cross that barrier and I'm like, become a little disgusting and it really, I can't enjoy it anymore. I don't think The Uncle hits that. It totes that line for certain, but it never really gets there for me. Again, I think there are a lot of beautiful shots in this. We have that full review up. I think the chemistry between the actors is great. There's the uncomfortable silences, just kind of sitting in the situations that they present are really well done. And then just the use of reflections that once you see it, you know what I'm talking about. I think is absolutely impactful. Just some of the camera work here is really well done. And then kind of just setting it around Christmas, I think is the happiest time of the year versus what exactly is going on in the circumstances is really beautifully so well done, I think. So that's why The Uncle kind of it appears where it does. It is one of those ones where I think you can only watch every so often. So it's something where those viewings are going to be sparingly, but I think every time you do watch it, you're going to be feeling that impact.
Yeah, it is a heck of a movie with a heck of a residual feeling. I will tell you this. Seeing this one as early as I did for the rest of the holiday horror that we got to experience definitely made me not want to watch any more Christmas movies. Definitely put me in that vibe. But there was one that bounced me back a little bit, appearing a little higher on our list. But going on to next. So next for me would have been You Are Not Me. But if we're moving on to what's my following one and the one we skipped for you, we're talking Pet Sematary Bloodlines. So clearly, this one falls a little higher on my list than yours. You have this at third from the bottom, as to where I have this in the fourth from the bottom spot. You know, I definitely think that this was one of the bigger titles that we were happy to get. I mean, clearly it's Pet Cemetery, it's on Paramount. There's been a lot of talk about it as we record this on its actual full release weekend. But, this is one that I was definitely excited to see. And, for, I guess, all the wrong reasons. I think that it was just one of those things where I was like, I am interested to see what they do with this, but I didn't have the most faith that it would be any good. So it was more one of those, I'm just kind of waiting to see the car wreck unfold. And I got to say, I was happy to say it's not a car wreck, in my opinion. I know a lot of people have been kind of harsh on it, saying that it doesn't really bring anything new to the franchise. And, although it's kind of samey as to what you expect from a Pet Cemetery movie, I did like the direction they took with this. I did like a lot of the things they did. I thought the cast was excellent overall. Some people were underused, but the younger cast is really what stood out for me on this one. And I think that Pet Cemetery Bloodlines is one that I'm going to revisit more so than some of the other additions in Pet Cemetery.
Yeah. Yeah. This one for me, I think it was well done. I understand, people saying, was this really needed? I mean, there are a lot of films out there that are like that, and depending on which route you take in terms of expanding the lore. I think maybe some people thought maybe it was going to be a different take than what we had initially got there. But, for me, I was fairly entertained for most of it. Yeah, it is kind of, in line with something like that 2019 version. Does have that similar feel to it. I think it was a little more entertaining than 2019. Pet Cemetery. So, I like the idea of the Vietnam War and kind of, injecting that aspect into it. So for me, I think it was a good watch. It was just something where I may go back and watch it, but I'm like not intrigued. I'm not waiting to go back and watch it now that it is streaming. Like I said in our review, I think Pet Cemetery is something where there's almost this barrier of where filmmakers are maybe a little too scared to really dive deep into what makes Pet Cemetery so creepy and fun. I hope we get to that point. Bloodlines was kind of more in the middle. Didn't really, I saw some more potential that could have been used that they didn't really hit. But I think the performances were fun. I think, for me, there's a great villain in it. That was, I think, a great performance as well. And just kind of seeing that DNA, that the backstory from, Judd's perspective and everything. So, for me, it was an intriguing watch.
Great, great. Yeah, no, I definitely think it is worth checking it out, especially after that 2019 one. That just wasn't my cup of tea, but very cool to see. I don't know if it's going to open up any more doors for Pet Cemetery until we get another eventual remake or something, but I do like the twist of just kind of expanding on the King lore here. And I would say, and I think Luke would agree, it is worth a watch. Coming in at the fifth from the bottom spot here, you had, well, I guess I should say, where your number 4 was the uncle. Mine was Pet Cemetery Bloodlines. Coming in at the fifth spot for you is the origin, but I put that a little bit higher as well. But coming in at my fifth from the bottom is There's Something in the Barn, which you had at your fourth from the top. So we can meet on that ground there. And I think that it's not shocking that this is a bit higher on your list than mine. Not that I have anything wrong with this movie. I had a blast with it. It's a great time, but this is totally a Luke movie right here. Just as far as the elements that it brings in and just the fun that it is. This is something that I see you, again, like you said in our review, putting this on at least once during the holiday season from here on out.
I am very excited to check this one out again. I can't wait until this gets an actual release, and just so I can get that Blu-ray in my hands, because this is something, as my daughter gets older, I can't wait to put this one on and let her watch it, because it does feel like more so geared toward a younger audience. And yes, there is some gore in here, but I think it's more sparing than anything. There's only a handful of gory aspects, and they're only on screen for a short time. For me, it's easy to deem this geared toward a younger audience, just because of the feel, the comedy that's into it. And of course, I love their take on it. I think it was a lot of fun. It's a great concept, and they didn't, they did everything more so, our elves are practical rather than kind of doing that CGI aspect, which I thought, if we were in for was going to actually ruin that film. But, Martin Starr, can't beat him in comedy. Just a great concept overall. I hope maybe we get some sort of expansion in this universe. If there is room for it, I would be up for a second round of this easily.
Oh yeah, it's good fun. It's definitely great holiday horror. This was definitely a good bounce back for me after watching The Uncle. But it is one of those things for me where it's not necessarily a little lower on my list because anything's wrong with it. It's just there were some movies that I liked a little bit more, but I definitely recommend checking out There's Something in the Barn as soon as it comes out. So jumping from There's Something in the Barn, if we go from that, we go to my number 4, which is Spooktacular, which does appear higher on Luke's list. So we're going to actually jump down to Luke's number 5, which ends up being my number 3, which is The Origin. I mean, this was definitely, without a doubt, top 2, top 3 most anticipated of the festival for me. I can say that 100%. I know Luke was looking forward to it, but I was definitely championing this, I think, more so out of the two of us, just because, again, it sounds like it's something right up my alley. And when you say the words prehistoric horror, and, that gets a lot of people's minds racing. Is it, Ice Age horror? Is it dinosaur horror? This is not what I expected from the film, but man, there is a lot to love about The Origin.
Yeah, this is very different than anything else that we've seen, I think, in Fantastic Fest, and that's saying something with so many unique films through here. But this one definitely has its own voice, its own look. It's such a complete film, I guess I would say. From the way the storytelling set up, from their own language that's being spoke, from the suspense element to it, to the gore that's in this thing is just wild. Some of the effects are crazy. So it's one of those ones where I think maybe the only reason it doesn't appear, maybe it didn't crack the top 3, is I was hoping for something, and we talk about it in the review. I think, if that was something that would have panned out, I think this would have easily been a top 3 film for me. But this is a great film. This is something that, when this is out to a general audience, I'm going to highly recommend that everyone go see, because, this isn't like the biggest budgeted thing in the world, but, it feels like that. It feels like they really did take their time, and they had so many resources. I think they just made great use of everything in this film.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things, like Luke said, where it's very well rounded. It feels very complete. This does feel like they didn't leave anything on the table here. And yes, we do yearn for a little bit more of, I guess you would say, that typical approach from what you'd expect as the story continues. And they do kind of take a left turn on you. But, it is something that instead of sitting there being annoyed by it like it would with some films, I found myself gradually accepting it just because the merits of the film warrant it. It's just so well done, and you just get so much out of it. And even once they take that left turn, it's still a really compelling scene. It just kind of sets you up for a different movie than I think we were expecting, especially us being big creature feature fans. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this happens, but I think that it still pays off very strong in the end. And it leaves you with kind of your mouth dropped on the floor in a lot of ways, and a lot of sequences. Tension's built really well. There's a lot of great usage of darks. I gotta say, the 2 biggest elements that I absolutely adore in this film are the cinematography and the music. I can't get over the music. This might be the best score for me in the entire run of Fantastic Fest here. I can think of only one other film that could even compete to it, and we haven't gotten to it yet. So I'm going to say definitely check out The Origin. This is one that I'm going to try my best to get to the theater to see when it comes out, especially if it's early in the year and we don't have a lot going on. I would definitely want to see this one on the big screen. So jumping up to my number 2 spot, but Luke's number 3 spot, we come in at Where the Devil Roams. Yes, this was our final solo review for the festival. Just posted it the other day. We gushed about it today as we're recording this, so everything's still a bit fresh. But it is one of those things where it's like, This was very much a film that was built up on reputation from the filmmakers for me. And I don't know if Luke could attest to that. It's more something that you understood who the Adams were. You understood well, their previous film, Hellbender. Again, our buddy Evan did a video on it, and I watched it, and it was something where it's like, okay, I kind of like the element here. It's a family that they work on creative projects together. You know, they make films, they make music. And I was like, we have the opportunity to see this. It sounds like an intriguing concept. Boy, did this leave me floored by the end of it. I mean, just looking at the list and really ranking things out, this on a lot of levels is just something I gotta completely sit here and respect. It's low budget, but it looks great. They don't hold back with their concept. They take a lot of ballsy risks, but it really pays off and it's unique. It's definitely something that I haven't seen before. It feels, and I guess this might just be the comparison because of all the Edgar Allan Poe exposure we've had, but it does feel like an old Edgar Allan Poe story in a lot of ways.
It's definitely got that gothic tone to it,
Mhm.
and this being a Depression era piece, we said it in the review. Really bold take to have a low budget film and to make a period piece out of it, and I think it accentuates the film. It makes it better for it, and I think it makes it a great concept. And there is a darker element to this that they lean into, and it's so well done. It's such a supernatural kind of aspect to it that I think it's made for a particular audience, and that particular audience is going to absolutely love it. I know we did. Even the character work here is great. It's
Mhm.
from the Adams family, they're all in a car together. Kind of, you feel that camaraderie, that darkness in some of the characters here. It's really great. It's really well done. Great dialogue, some really dark imagery as well, and that ending is gonna
It
leave you.
sticks with you, man.
It's
Again, seriously,
in
like
such a great way. Like, I absolutely love it. Like, I want to go back and just watch the last 10 minutes of this thing, because it is so well done. It's gonna leave your mouth on the floor. I think
that
it's just
more so than anything in this Fantastic Fest run, this is definitely one where you're like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god. That's how you're wrapping this up. That's fucking genius. It's great and I love it. You brought it up in the review about the little music video aspect that comes here. There are so many songs. I just want them. I looked them up on Spotify. They're not out, but I want them to just drop tracks from this because like I'm very much a person who collects music through watching film, and there's so many tracks that they built for this that just they're so great. And you said it's punk rock in the sense of it being a Depression era film and using these rock ballads. It's like it's so good. Like I love it. It shouldn't work, but it does, and
absolutely
it's
does.
so weird. I love
I'm,
it.
and I haven't heard any of their music up until watching this, but I am definitely gonna go back and I want to see if I can get a hold of any of their catalog because it'll be worth it.
Absolutely. Nice job, guys. Definitely. Again, this is my number two and Luke's number three. So this is definitely up there for us. We're in top three material here. But now we got to jump on to the final two big boys. So here we go. So coming in at Luke's number two spots and my number four spots, no hate. Absolutely love this, but I'm going to let Luke take it away. Luke, tell us about Spooktacular.
Well, this is a documentary, and we said it in a review here on the channel. We love our horror-centric documentaries, and Spooktacular's no different. So well done. This does cover the Spooky World event from the 90s. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do some homework and get pumped for this when this is released, so you kind of have a little base to get you started. But this one, even going in cold, which we both did, had no concept of Spooky World, really almost, holds your hand and takes you through this ride of how this just little hayride started and just it developed into this big attraction that is really the groundwork for a lot of things that we do see that are horror centric nowadays. You get to see the actual footage from the 90s and when this thing started, and they really do their homework in terms of being able to get a lot of people that actually work there and get those tales that are going to be told. I mentioned in our review, there's a thing of John Krasinski talks about a particular instance that he had as when he was a kid going to Spooky World, and they actually get the Dracula that he's talking about in there, and they get that kind of filling in on that whole scenario there. So this one for me appears so high because this feels like a thorough documentary, and it's one of those things where these things are hard to be made, in terms of, they take a lot of time to really be thorough and get that story told, but they did it here.
Yeah, I also thoroughly enjoyed Spooky World or Spooktacular. This was one of those surprises for us again. We say it in the review. It was a screener that fell into our lap. The PR person behind it, I'm not dragging him in any way. I even joked about it with him how great this was. But this was the same person who was doing the PR for The Wait, and we were supposed to get The Wait, but he sent us Spooktacular, immediately caught it, and was like, hey, is this something you guys want to cover? Because if not, no big deal. And we were like, oh yeah, we'll take a look at it. Horror documentary, we'll get around to it. We'll throw it on the list. By the time we had finished it, Luke and I were both just like, yeah, we're reviewing this. This is right up our alley. And again, it's because it's a story nobody really knows. And it's something that I think if you love horror and you love, like, especially, I want to say, like, horror merchandising, if you love Halloween and you like all this stuff, like you go around like my family does and Luke, where we go around with our families and we go to like Spirit Halloween a couple times during this month. We go to haunted houses. I just spent all day at a pumpkin patch with my family today. And, big Spooky World vibes. It's not scary, but it was just one of those things where they had events and games and things to do. And I was just sitting there thinking about this documentary all day. And it's so great that they were able to put this together. Again, like Luke said, this is difficult. This isn't as, it's always hard to put these things together, and I'm not shaming any of the filmmakers or films we've covered this past year with all these horror docs, but like this in and of itself, rounding these people up who were just like, I worked at this, like, carnival in the 90s essentially, or the Disney World for horror fans, and they could be God knows where by this point, but to get them all back for interviews and stuff, top notch, really makes this thing worth it. This is one I want to own. This is one that I would own digitally as well, because this to me is one of those, it's a rainy day, it's a cold snowy day, I'm just trying to sit back, relax, maybe take a nap, and I want some comfort on right before I fall asleep. It'd be one of those things where I put this on, I watch as much, I sleep, I wake up, and I finish it. It's so comforting. It really feels good. It makes you feel like you're back in that moment. And those are some of the best documentaries.
Without question. And, credit to Dylan for doing, as we were doing Fantastic Fest, to do all these thumbnails and everything. Because I got to say, every time I go onto our channel to just peruse and see the numbers, I always see Spooktacular there. And every time I see that thumbnail, it gets me itching to watch this thing again. So, this one I definitely want to own on Blu-ray. I mentioned in the review, I hope that they load it with extras, because I know there has to be a ton of footage out there that they didn't even get a chance to use. But this one, so well done. If you're on the fence of, horror documentaries in general, there are a lot of great ones out there. Add Spooktacular to your list. It's gonna be something that is gonna be fun for you, just being able to live in that element, because you can apply it to so many different functions in the horror community nowadays, because this has the DNA, this of, how horror was viewed, especially in the 90s. I mean, I mentioned in our review, it's getting a little bit better now, but back then, so counterculture, so different, so not looked upon positive in a sense. But yeah, definitely check this one out.
Alrighty, and that brings us to our final film, the number one spot. Luke and I, we agree. I know, shocking. It's like we're friends and we do a podcast together, so we like similar films. Crazy, wild, shockingly, and I guess it's very serendipitous. This is the first film we watched for Fantastic, right? This is the first thing we watched, right? I know it was the first thing I watched. But this was something that, again, we didn't know much about it. There was one thing that caught me off guard to say, okay, yeah, I'll take the screener for this. We got offered it. Because, when you're starting out doing this, the thing that we learned, the biggest piece that I can tell you is like a little inside baseball here for any of you guys who want to do this stuff. Not all of the big films are available to us. I mean, clearly we didn't see Toxic Avenger, we didn't see some of the other big ones, VHS 85, all that stuff. We didn't get to see it during the virtual coverage. It's just kind of how it is. A lot of those are really held close, and there's nothing wrong with that. We get that. The ultimate goal for us is to eventually be able to attend this festival in person and get there at some point. And of course, the penultimate goal is to get a film in this festival. But to have this chance and to get to do this, it's still wonderful. It's still worth it. But having this film be number one, if you would have told me at the start of this festival that this was going to be it, I would have said you're crazy. I don't even know what this is, but I saw the name Jim Cummings. Luke and I, we both like his work. Luke has some opinions about him, but we've seen his films. You know what I mean? We've watched a good bit of them, and there were a few other names on there, but it was just like, okay, let's watch it. Absolutely blown away by Last Stop in Yuma County. I mean, this was one that just we gave it such a positive review when it came out. It was seriously one that we did not see coming, and it is going to be one of those films that I hope gets a wide release, and I really hope people discover it, because this is wonderful.
This is quality through and through. There are films out there that, you start watching and it takes you 15, 20 minutes to really start feeling the flow and really getting invested in it. Last Stop in Yuma County, you're invested right off the bat there. Just character-wise, situation-wise, oh my gosh, this thing is the epitome of everything I'm looking for in a film, to be honest. Not really, I guess, horror-centric in a way. But this is something where, you could just sit down and you're so engaged because of the character work, because of the situations they're putting together. And, this is primarily in one big location and, with a lot of just characters coming in and out and kind of building that tension. And it is done so well here. Just the visuals as well. I mean, so perfect. The character arcs that we see. This film is another one. It's like The Origin. It's a complete film. There's just so much positivity in the filmmaking here. I said in our review that it was a little alarming that we're starting this strong, and it all panned out because we did get some quality films, but this one, very fun that it was the first film we got to watch and turned out to be number one on our list.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, again, you would have told me that, I would have said you're crazy. But, after seeing the film, I can't deny here that this was just such a strong right hook coming right out of the gate, where I just was like, man, this hit me like a fucking train. And it's been on my mind since. It's one I do want to rewatch and definitely see. If it comes into theaters, I'll go see it. If it comes to, Blu-ray, I will buy it, because it's one that I absolutely adored here, from the performances to the setup to the story. This is very Coen Brothers-esque. It's very much like that kind of style of crime thriller with a little bit of drama mixed in with some comedy. It's such a delicate balance here, and it's all primarily in one location. And I mean, the cast of Richard Brake, Jim Cummings, so many recognizable character actors throughout this, man. There is just nothing that you don't love about this film, genuinely, when you walk out of it. I think that it was one of the biggest surprises again for us, and absolutely earned its spot. It earned its keep here, and I cannot wait to see this again. This is another one that we were lucky enough to sit down and get an interview with the director, Francis Galuppi, which those are going to be releasing this week. We have this interview, and of course Luke's interview for Jackdaw with Jamie Childs. So definitely, look out for those. They're not very long. They're only about 10 minutes or so on yours. Mine was about 10 minutes. So, but you do get a little bit of insight into them, and yeah, it's so good, dude. There's a reason it's number one on ours, and it's not a horror film, but it is so worth your time, so worth checking out, and I'm really happy that I got to see this at Fantastic Fest 2023.
Yeah, in this one, like I said, sometimes I wish I could go back and watch this one. This one was the only one on the list I had a chance to go back and watch twice. I watched it one time right before I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and kept thinking about it, and I watched it right then. And I got to say, this one is going to have unlimited rewatch value. I picked up so much more that second viewing. So this one, when it's out, it's appointment viewing. Make sure you make the time. Hopefully it's in the theater, because that on the big screen is going to be so worth the wait.
But alrighty, guys, that is our list. Yes, that is everything that we saw at Fantastic Fest. Last Stop in Yuma County takes the top spot for both of us. But of course, we have things like Where the Devil Roams, The Origin, Fishmonger, all of these films we just talked about in one way or another are worth checking out or worth seeing. Definitely do yourself a favor and try to make some time for some of these. Especially the big ones that we spent a little more time on. We do have more in-depth reviews for a lot of these movies, so check that down below. I am making a playlist for this for Fantastic Fest 2023. And yeah, I mean, if all goes well and we keep our bond strong, we can definitely say that we are going to be attending Fantastic Fest 2024. I really hope so. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, we're definitely now in the running. We know what to expect. And yeah, we're just going to improve and try to get more films watched. I mean, that's the goal when we do this, is watch as many films as possible. And now we kind of know how the system works. We know how everything is supposed to go and what to expect. And I think next year, you're going to see even more aggressiveness when it comes to putting out these videos and putting out this content. But I like this. I like kind of doing the final roundup, the summation of just saying, like, here's the festival in a nutshell. And yeah, it was a great time. It was wonderful to do the coverage. It was wonderful to have so many of you guys watch these videos and hop on board with us. And I'm sure over the next year, as these films start to release wide, we'll get even more of you. So thank you for stopping by. Thank you for sticking around. And if you've been here for a while, thank you for watching. But yeah. Go ahead, Luke. You can hop in there. I'll just cut you in. I wasn't saying yes and that. It was just my ending.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, this being our first big coverage event like this, we didn't know what to expect, but looking back on it, a wild time. It's so great that we get to see so many great films coming out of this thing. Never would we have imagined that we would be, seeing a lot of early screenings for this type of stuff. A lot of great stuff. So hopefully, you've watched this and you're making your own list of things that you want to make sure that you see as this stuff is released, because everything on here is quality. Definitely supported, even the smaller stuff, even the stuff that appears at the back end of our list. I mean, yeah, like Dylan said, filmmaking's hard. It's going to resonate with somebody. So definitely keep it in the back of your head that if you see something pop up, maybe give it a watch. It might hit with you if it didn't hit with us, but there's a lot of quality stuff here. And yes, hopefully 2024 is going to look even bigger for some of the fests that we're going to be able to cover.
100%. I'm excited to see what the lineup's going to look like. Again, the best part about film fests like this is just that there's so many underdogs, so many ones that you don't hear about or you've just heard very little about, and they can come out swinging and they can knock your socks off. And that was my favorite part of this whole thing. Of course, we would have loved to have seen the Toxic Avenger, and we'll be there day one for that puppy as soon as it hits wide. And yeah, there's a lot of other ones. VHS 85 came out this weekend. We're going to catch that one, and we'll definitely be talking about that and more VHS. But yeah, there's just so much to enjoy about what we got to see, so many things that we got to do. If you're one of the filmmakers or one of the people that helped us obtain a screener watching for this, thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication to making this all happen. And yeah, again, I'm excited for 2024. We're definitely, the second we can put in an application, we will be there. And yeah, it's going to be a heck of a ride, man. And we're going to try to do this. We're going to try to attend some other festivals. Luke and I have talked about it. Our buddy Alex over at Beyond the Void podcast has one that is happening, I think, this or next week. And it is something we can still apply for it. But I think with Splatterthon and this, we got a lot on our plate right now. It sucks that we won't be able to attend it because there's a couple of newer films there that we want to see. But, we got to space these things out. But there is one in the spring. I don't remember. The title's escaping me. Luke, do you remember what it is?
Not offhand. Not Panic Fest, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe not. I'll put it right here
Yeah.
across the screen if I know what it is. Either way, we're going to try to get there too. So, yeah, hopefully we can do more of this. It's a lot of fun. But thanks for sticking around with us, guys. It's been great. Been wonderful covering Fantastic Fest. And yeah, we're out of the woods on this one. We've hit the end of the mark. It's been a dream. It's been a journey. And now we can continue on with our Splatterthon coverage, which if you have not been watching, we've got a lot of fun videos up already, some exclusive Splatterthon reviews, and even more content coming down the pipeline at the end of the week here. It's Friday the 13th. I know Luke's cooking up a little something special for our boy Jason there. And yeah, we might have another little fun video for you down the road too. So keep your eyes peeled. And yeah, that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I am Dylan Wool.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.